I was reborn with Julian. In my previous life, I was the adopted sister he personally picked from the orphanage, and also his wife, loving each other until old age. In this life, when Wallace's parents waved for me to come forward as they did in the previous life, the young Julian stopped them. "Dad, Mom, I don't want her anymore. I want this girl to be my sister." He took the girl beside me, the Astor family's adopted daughter who died young in the previous life, and looked at me with icy eyes. "You stole Scarlett's life and caused her tragic death. In this life, it's your turn to taste the hell she died in." I instantly understood. So this time, he wants to be the dragon-slaying hero saving the princess. "Come with me." I looked at Mrs. Astor in front of me, and looked at the back of the person who had been with me for decades, leaving resolutely with the girl. I nodded. "That's fine. This life. I also want to live a different way." When I walked out of the orphanage, the Wallace family hadn't left yet. Seeing me, Julian immediately pushed the girl into the car nervously, and said to me viciously, "Claire, even if you kneel down and beg me, I won't take you away. The Wallace family doesn't welcome you. A thief like you should stay in the cannibalistic Astor family." He pushed me away and slammed the car door shut with a bang. I staggered and hadn't stood firm. The Wallace family's motorcade had already sped away. The dust stirred up by the exhaust fumes was so heavy that my eyes could barely open. A black Maybach stopped in front of me. The window rolled down, revealing Mrs. Astor's cold face. "Want to go to the Wallace family?" I shook my head. "The Astor family is very good." Mrs. Astor paused, glancing at me faintly. "What's your name?" I answered softly, "Claire. From now on you are Claire Astor." She was concise, but I understood what she meant. I quickly got into the car and said obediently, "Okay, Mom." Mrs. Astor raised an eyebrow, didn't speak, and leaned back in the seat, closing her eyes to rest. I also knew better than to speak anymore. The car drove into the Astor family's villa. I followed Mrs. Astor through the door, watching her put down her bag, and then casually raise her eyes, as if speaking to someone. "Tristan, this is your new sister, Claire Astor." I was stunned. Subconsciously, I followed her gaze and looked up. Directly facing the courtyard railing on the second floor was a boy's face, even more handsome than Julian's, delicately beautiful to an extreme. I don't know how long he had been observing there. I was a little surprised. The Astor family's Tristan actually looks like this. In my previous life, not long after I was adopted into the Wallace family, Tristan was arranged by the Astor family to go abroad. By the time I saw Tristan, many years had passed. At that time, he had already inherited the Astor family, but his appearance was marred, and because of his hideous face and iron-blooded methods, he was jokingly called the Yama of wealth by the business community. I curved my eyes and greeted him. "Brother." Tristan, however, didn't seem to hear, still leaning on the railing, his face aloof and indifferent. "Don't mind him, he doesn't like to talk." Mrs. Astor called a nanny to take me to familiarize myself with the environment, and then left. As I followed the nanny about to step out the door, I turned my head as if possessed, and happened to collide with the boy's deathly silent pupils. My heart skipped a beat. Before I could even smile, Tristan had already withdrawn his gaze, and turned to enter the room. It's been over a month since I was taken to the Astor family. Other than the first day at the orphanage, I haven't seen Mrs. Astor again. It's Tristan, on the other hand, whom I occasionally run into at the dining table. Every time, I would sweetly call out brother. But he never gave me a response. But I didn't care. Because I was very, very busy. Although Mrs. Astor hasn't appeared, my classes are still fully arranged by her. Etiquette class, dance class, equestrian. And now it's summer vacation. Learning from morning till night every day, so busy that my feet barely touch the ground. Even the nanny at home, Anna, looks at me with pity when I fall and get hurt all over during riding lessons. "Miss, do you want to tell madam and rest for a day today?" I put on my shoes and shook my head. "No need." When she took me home, Mrs. Astor said, "Astor's children are born to be the most outstanding, even if you are just an adopted daughter. That young lady from the Wallace family next door doesn't have to work so hard." Anna sighed and handed me my bag. See, it's been lively over there all morning. I heard the whole family is preparing to go on vacation abroad during the holidays. I know Anna is saying this to stand up for me, feeling that I am not enjoying the childhood fun that I should be having at this age. I stood up and took the bag. Anna, I'm not tired, it's what I want to learn. Perhaps in other people's eyes, the Astor family is hell. But for me it is not. The Astor family is an old wealthy family, and the foundation and resources it possesses are far from being comparable to upstarts like the Wallace family. Here I can grow better. Even if the Astor family has complicated clan relations, the Astor family doesn't recognize me, Mrs. Astor is picky and cold, and Tristan is also indifferent and aloof. Just as I was lost in thought, a snow-white kitten suddenly jumped to my feet, followed by a delicate and annoyed female voice. Little sweetie, you've recognized the wrong person, come back quickly. Brother, please help me get little sweetie back. Silly sister. I picked up the kitten and stood up. My eyes met those of the young man who was walking towards me with a smile full of doting. It's Julian. When Julian saw me, the smile on his face froze, and his eyes were full of disgust. You actually chased after me here? You're really haunting. He sneered, not hiding his malice. You don't think that if you wait here I'll have a change of heart, do you? Keep dreaming. Claire. Scarlett's surprised voice interrupted him. She lifted her princess dress and walked to me, happily saying, Great, I didn't expect to see you here after leaving the orphanage. Is that car waiting for you? She took the kitten, curiously looking at the car parked not far behind me. This look made her face turn pale. Oh my gosh, you were actually adopted by that Astor family next door? I was about to answer when I inadvertently noticed the key pendant hanging on her neckline, and my eyes paused. Scarlett noticed my gaze and unnaturally raised her hand to cover the pendant. I pretended not to see it and nodded. It's the Astor family. So now your last name is Astor, and you're called Claire Astor? I glanced at Julian, whose face was full of embarrassment because of the misunderstanding. Yeah. Are the people in the Astor family all scary? I heard the Astor family's young master is sick, he's mute, is that true? She pointed in the direction of the Astor family mysteriously, and asked a series of questions. I frowned. Just as I was about to refute, Scarlett didn't give me a chance to speak. Claire, are you learning to shoot? She tilted her head and sized up the riding and shooting clothes I was wearing. Yeah, I have something to do. I was trying to find an excuse to leave when Julian interrupted impatiently. Scarlett, what's the point of wasting time with this kind of person? Let's go. Scarlett said, oh, and stuck out her tongue playfully. Don't mind him. My brother isn't usually like this, he's very gentle, I don't know what's wrong with him today. Brother, wait for me. She lifted her skirt and chased after him. I stared for a second, and then turned around as well. Behind me, Scarlett and Julian's conversation was carried to my ears by the wind. Brother, the Astor family is too strict. Claire is the same age as me, but she has to go to school every day. I saw she's covered in injuries from falling, so pitiful. What's the use of learning this kind of thing for a girl? Some people just don't have the fate to enjoy such things. Our Scarlett only needs to be beautiful like a little princess in this life. The Wallace family's daughter doesn't have to suffer this kind of hardship. Yeah, Mom, Dad, and brother are all the best. Suffering. Is that so? So the Wallace family sees hard work as suffering. I twitched the corner of my mouth. In my previous life, the Wallace family parents did dote on me a lot. But they never approved of me learning any skills. I wanted to learn riding and shooting. They objected. How can that be? What if you break your skin and get scars? How will you get married in the future? I was being followed, and I wanted to learn self-defense. They also refused. No respectable family's daughter learns this. The Wallace family has bodyguards, no one can bully you. Later, I wanted to study business and finance. They also said, why learn so much? The Wallace family has your brother, that's enough. Seemingly giving unlimited pampering, in reality, they raised me into a daughter flower that could only depend on others. But Mrs. Astor would tell me, the people of the Astor family should learn and compete for everything. Summer vacation passed quickly. Soon it was time for school to start. Mrs. Astor had already transferred me to the international school with Tristan, which was also the school Julian and I attended in my previous life. On the first day of school, I sat in the car early. When Tristan opened the car door, I greeted him with a smile. "Good morning, brother. Mom said we'll go to school together from now on." Tristan paused for a second. Then he silently sat down in the farthest place from me. The next day, I did the same. The third day. The fourth day. This continued for 2 months. I unexpectedly discovered that although Tristan never responded to my words, occasionally, if I was late for breakfast and rushed out of the courtyard, I would find Tristan waiting by the car with his school bag. I suppressed my surprise and smiled. Brother is so nice. Whenever this happened, Tristan would glance at me as usual and get into the car without saying a word. However, this time he stepped into the car with his right foot first. I curled up the corners of my lips. This is truly a good change. This day, after school, I waited in the teaching building for a long time, but Tristan didn't come out. I couldn't contact him either. Just as I was getting anxious, a thought suddenly flashed in my mind. I suddenly remembered. Something major happened at the school gate at this time in my previous life. At that time, I was still studying hard, trying to catch up with the pace of the international school. I vaguely heard the students talking about someone from the Astor family coming to cause trouble. It was said that something happened to their children. Many years later, I accidentally heard someone mention that the Astor Corps leader, Tristan, was maliciously disfigured in high school. Could it be this day? Damn it. There's no time. I realized. I quickly sent a message to the driver, telling him that if he didn't see me at the school gate, come find us directly. Then I ran quickly to the alley behind the school. Tristan, don't let anything happen to you. When I arrived, Tristan was being cornered by several gang members. Haha, the young masterway is really mute, huh? No matter how we hit him, he won't even shout. A mute won't snitch. Do you want to be bothered by the Astor family? Damn, this kid dares to glare at me. One of them, who looked like a student, spat and pulled out a box cutter, aiming to slash Tristan's face. My heart tightened. I caught a glimpse of a baseball bat on the ground. I took a deep breath, cheered myself up, and then rushed out shouting, "I've already called the police." I rushed into the crowd, waving the bat randomly. At this moment, I couldn't help but be grateful that I had been studying diligently in physical education class lately. The thugs were unprepared and were scattered in all directions by my wild swings. And because I said I had called the police, they retreated. Damn it, that kid's lucky. The group grumbled and walked away. Once they were far enough, I rushed over to check on Tristan. Tristan had a cut on his face, thankfully not too deep, but his hands and legs were injured. Brother, hang in there, I'll take you home. I helped Tristan up to leave. Suddenly, I was kicked to the ground with brutal force. Damn it, Rick, I knew this little bean sprout was lying. Calling the police? TSK. Little bitch, lying at such a young age. A mute and a liar, a perfect match. Haha. The one called Rick was swearing nonstop, kicking me in the back over and over. The pain made me want to bury my head, but then I met Tristan's terrified eyes. I trembled, forcing a smile, and whispered reassuringly, "Brother, don't be afraid." Tristan's gaze suddenly froze. I protected Tristan, refusing to retreat a single step. The punches on my back grew more furious. Just as the next blow was about to land, Tristan, who hadn't fought back at all, suddenly moved. He lunged at the person closest to me, biting his hand desperately like a madman. His sudden frenzy stunned Rick and the others for a few seconds. But he was outnumbered and soon pinned down. Several fists slammed into his head, his chest, and someone pulled out an iron bar. Is there still no way to change the ending? Despair filled my heart. Then, the sound of voices and footsteps came from the alley entrance. Had the driver uncle arrived with help? I struggled to open my eyes, hoping to see. In my line of sight appeared a pair of white sneakers. The owner of the shoes stood in the alley entrance, silhouetted against the light. Rick and the others glared at him menacingly. Kid, what are you looking at? Kid, not the driver uncle? I strained my eyes desperately, trying to see the person's face, but it was blurred by blood. I couldn't make it out. Then someone called him from a distance. Julian, What are you doing standing there? The strawberry cake shop is this way. The person was silent for a moment. Okay, I'm coming. I blinked my dry eyes and murmured softly, bro. The person paused. In the end, he did not turn around and walked away slowly with the girl. The girl couldn't resist her curiosity and peered into the alley, immediately screaming in fright. Ah, brother, it looks like someone is hurt over there. Did you see it? The next second, her eyes were covered. Don't look, it's dirty, Julian said softly, from far away. I seemed to hear him whisper. Little Scarlet, this life I found you early. I will protect your innocence. You don't have to suffer torment from the Astor family again, leading to an untimely end. In a daze, I remembered that in my previous life, before he passed away, he had repeatedly murmured, "It's all my fault, if only I had found you sooner." I thought he was talking about my accidental miscarriage that led to infertility. I choked and comforted him. Old man, we'll be together in the next life, and we'll have children too. Turns out his regret in the previous life had nothing to do with me. What haunted him was that he was with me that day, and couldn't save Scarlet in time. So in this life he chose to keep her by his side, protecting her from everything. So today he came here, not to save me. Just wanted to see for himself how I, the thief, was being bullied in place of his beloved. But in my previous life, I vaguely heard classmates say, after the Astor family's 2 children had an accident, Tristan was sent abroad. But Scarlet was not allowed to go with him, and her treatment in the Astor family was not as good as before. Some girls who knew the inside story hinted. That day, she saw Scarlet abandon Tristan. Tristan protected Scarlet with his life, but she didn't even look back when she ran away. But Julian seemed convinced that his White Lotus was the victim. So, Julian really thinks his white moonlight is that pure and kind. I chuckled softly, wiped my eyes. Then I crawled up and desperately hugged one of their legs. No matter how much he kicked me, cursed me, I refused to let go. Don't hit my brother. Until I couldn't hold on any longer. Before me, everything fell into darkness. When I woke up, there was a furry head lying by the bed. The strong smell of disinfectant made me realize I was in the hospital. Looks like the driver uncle arrived with help. I wanted to sit up, but perhaps the movement was too much, and woke Tristan. He stared at me with his beautiful peach blossom eyes, without blinking, and after a long while, he raised his hand and stroked the bandage on my forehead. Sister. Does it hurt? It seemed like he hadn't spoken for too long. His voice was a little hoarse but not unpleasant, even very nice. But I was still shocked. Tristan actually spoke to me? Not only was I startled, even Mrs. Astor, who happened to push the door open, was filled with disbelief. Did Xiaoyan just speak? She lost her usual composure. Xiaoyan, can you say a few words to Mom too, okay? Tristan just glanced at her, turned his head and continued staring at my wound, refusing to open his mouth again. I was immediately a little awkward, wanting to comfort him but not knowing how to start. Mom, just now brother he. Mrs. Astor shook her head, her eyes red. It's okay, take it slowly, Tristan needs time. She didn't continue. Anna, behind her, came in with the lunchbox at the right time. At lunchtime, Anna said the matter at the alley entrance had been investigated. It was nothing more than a group of street thugs who had heard the Astors were rich and had become greedy. One of them was even a student from the same school. The youths were all adults, and a prison sentence was unavoidable. The student had also been expelled from school. I nodded, my gaze falling on Tristan, who was eating quietly. Who would have thought? In my previous life, just because of a flicker of evil in these social dregs' minds, such a wonderful person had been dragged into the abyss. Fortunately, in this life, he is safe and sound. Tristan saw that I wasn't using my chopsticks and looked at me strangely. Sister, eat. I snapped back to reality and put food on his plate. Brother, you eat too. Just after finishing lunch, Tristan was caught and dragged back by the nurse sister who barged in. I then learned he had run away from another ward. Before leaving, he touched my head. Sister, get well soon. Those simple words once again made the Astor family members present become emotional, and their eyes reddened. Anna also secretly wiped the corner of her eye. Tristan left. Mrs. Astor didn't leave, but just stood there, watching Tristan's receding figure. She wasn't wearing makeup today, and her entire demeanor seemed to have instantly withdrawn its sharp edges, looking much gentler. Tristan wasn't like this before. He was very sensible, calm, and much more outstanding than many of his peers. At that time, everyone praised him as a genius, not a little mute, autistic. She sat down beside me, tears in her eyes. It's all because of that accident 4 years ago. I was stunned. Mrs. Astor said. Tristan once had a younger sister, Sophie. Sophie was the daughter of Mr. Astor's younger brother. After Mr. Astor and his brother and his wife passed away due to an accident many years ago, the entire Astor Corp relied on Mrs. Astor to bear the burden. Sophie was also brought back to the Astor home by Mrs. Astor and raised as her own daughter. That was a difficult time for the Astor family. Without Mr. Astor, Astor Corp was like a piece of fat meat placed out in the open, and everyone wanted to take a bite. Mrs. Astor had to harden her heart and become more and more ruthless, naturally making many enemies. For years ago, the Astor family's children were kidnapped. 6-year-old Sophie saw her brother being beaten and rushed forward, biting the kidnapper's hand tightly, refusing to let go. But the furious kidnapper repeatedly, heavily struck her head with a club. Tristan witnessed the entire process. After being rescued, he never smiled again, never spoke again. Mrs. Astor tried every method, but it was all in vain. Helpless, she listened to a friend's advice and adopted another sister, to try. Mrs. Astor got up and walked to the window. She said, I wasn't the first one to be adopted. Tristan hasn't been this close to anyone in a long time. He really likes you. A week later, I was discharged from the hospital and returned to the Astor home. The people around me treated me differently. If before, they regarded me as a dispensable adopted daughter, who could be sent away at any time, then now they treated me as a true young lady of the Astor family. But my classes didn't decrease because of this. In fact, there were even more. In Mrs. Astor's words, you will be entering Astor Corp in the future. Without ability, how will you be able to convince everyone? The Astor family members around at the time were shocked upon hearing this. They looked at me with vigilance and scrutiny. I didn't have time to ponder, but instead looked at Tristan in a panic, afraid that he would be unhappy because of this. But I found him looking at me, propping his chin up, stammering. Sister, don't be afraid, best. Looking at Tristan's bright eyes. My eyes moistened, and I nodded forcefully. Mrs. Astor's eyes also softened. Tristan, you need to work hard too. Be careful, Claire surpasses you. You'll have to rely on your sister to protect you in the future. No. As soon as Tristan heard this, he stood up anxiously. I protect sister. He even performed a set of punches on the spot. Since the school incident, Tristan has been studying martial arts even more diligently. Mrs. Astor and I exchanged a glance and chuckled, looking at Tristan's anxious expression. I curved my lips into a smile. Mrs. Astor once said, Tristan having you is his luck. This life. Coming to the Astor family. Isn't it my luck as well? Time flies. Under the Astor family's all-out cultivation, I became the someone else's child that many parents talked about. On the school honor roll, my name would occasionally appear together with Tristan's, who was in a higher grade. In contrast, Scarlett, who was a genius in my previous life, was busy having fun and never made it onto the list once. Julian, who was a slacker in both lives, was even more out of the question. Plus, the relationships between the Astor and Wallace families were already strained. It seemed that in this life, Julian and I were destined to have no more interaction. Only a few times. When I was looking at the grade list, I glimpsed Julian standing at the back of the crowd, his eyes dim and unfathomable. Brother, what are you staring at over there? Our names aren't on there. It's nothing. When I turned back again, he had already left with Scarlett. In such days, I welcomed my 18th birthday, and was about to participate in the college entrance examination. And Tristan had already accepted an invitation from a foreign school 3 years ago. Now he is studying abroad. The day of my college entrance exam, Even though I refused many times, Tristan dropped his project and rushed back overnight to accompany me for the exam. My sister's matter is the most important. I couldn't refuse, so I had to agree. After finishing the last exam, I walked out of the school. From afar, I saw Tristan leaning against the car, wearing black casual clothes. His outstanding appearance attracted the attention of many people around him. My desire to be low-key was shattered. As expected, where Tristan is, it's impossible not to cause a stir. He is no longer the little mute that everyone laughed at back then. Now he exudes a noble aura, easily making the girls who pass by blush. I quickly walked up and urged him. "Brother, let's go." Although Tristan was puzzled, he still obediently took my school bag. "Aren't you happy that I came to pick you up?" I didn't have time to explain and quickly pushed him into the car. "No, didn't we make plans with our friends? If we're late, everyone will complain. We invited some friends we'd known since childhood to get together, to celebrate my brother's return to the country, and the end of my college entrance exam. After the gathering, some of the people suggested going to the racetrack for a couple of laps. Tristan and I had nothing to do, so we followed along. At the racetrack, a small entertainment race was taking place. Who's the winner?" A friend looked at the big screen and said in surprise, "Julian? He's back in the country too? He races, can he even do it?" Julian's grades were average, and like Tristan, he didn't take the college entrance exam, but unlike Tristan, he went abroad to get a fake degree. After all, he's the heir to Wallace Corp, so everyone recognized him, and for a moment everyone's attention turned to him, as if to answer our questions. That flamboyant red race car crossed the finish line. The man stepped out of the car, squinting his eyes, enjoying the cheers of the audience. After not seeing him for a few years, he had shed his immaturity. He looked more and more like the him from my previous life. In the VIP seating, a girl, lifting her skirt, ran out and hugged the man, kissing him on the cheek. "Julian, you're so handsome." Their relationship was clear. In my previous life, as the Wallace family's adopted daughter in name, I was together with Julian and encountered many obstacles. In this life, I don't know how Julian convinced the Wallace family parents, but Scarlett was not recognized as the Wallace family's adopted daughter, and was said to be the daughter of a friend staying temporarily. Looking at it now, it was also well-intentioned. At this moment, the combination of a handsome man and a beautiful girl ignited the scene. A friend clicked his tongue. "Looks like the Wallace family has booked this place today. Let's go, let's change venues." I withdrew my gaze and was about to leave with everyone. There was a commotion ahead. Julian, holding Scarlett's hand, was walking over, surrounded by people. The two groups bumped into each other unexpectedly. Julian's gaze passed over the crowd and landed on me. A hint of astonishment flashed in his eyes. He was stunned for a moment. Then, as if wanting to avoid suspicion, he let go of Scarlett's hand. "Brother," Scarlett called out in dissatisfaction, turned her head and glared at me. Claire asked her, "What are you doing here?" She scrutinized me. After not seeing her for a while, the way she looked at me suddenly filled with hostility. "Just as I was feeling strange," she said. "Could it be? You heard Julian was back in the country, so you came to see him race?" Julian, upon hearing this, paused and his eyes casually swept over me, as if to say, "You are indeed like that." I was speechless. Am I that bored? Tristan also frowned. He stepped forward, his tall figure completely blocking me. Julian saw Tristan's action, his eyes darkened, and he finally spoke. His tone was light. "Claire, Scarlett is straightforward, don't mind her." "Brother." Scarlett refused and stomped her feet. "Why are you being so polite to her? Who knows if she's deliberately following us?" "Scarlett, that's enough," Julian interrupted in a low voice, his gaze involuntarily drifting back to me behind Tristan. "Even if it's true, don't ruin someone's reputation." He was shocked to discover, after not seeing each other for a few years, I had also changed a lot. The demeanor cultivated by the Astor family was something that the small-minded Scarlett could not compare to. "Wallace, take care of your precious sister. Don't let her bite everyone she sees." Someone among our friends couldn't stand the Wallace siblings' behavior and sneered. Claire came to celebrate the end of her college entrance exam, not to see what? Your small-scale entertainment race. The sarcasm in his words was obvious. What do you mean? Scarlett immediately widened her eyes. Julian just won first place, how can you say it's small-scale? Julian's expression darkened slightly. He had just enjoyed the praise of victory, and he couldn't help but feel angry at being mocked. Aster, it's rare to run into you in a place like this. That race just now wasn't satisfying. Are you interested in a race? He directly ignored the others, his gaze fixed on Tristan. Tristan frowned and was about to step forward, but I grabbed his hand and shook my head. I didn't want to get entangled with Julian. Julian saw this and smiled. If you're not daring, then never mind. The provocation was extreme. The air seemed to freeze. The expressions on my friends' faces were not good. But no one dared to accept the challenge for Tristan. They knew that Tristan hadn't touched a race car in many years. My expression was calm, and I released his hand. Tristan also reached out and ruffled my hair. Want to see your brother win? I nodded, smiling. Go, brother. Tristan turned and walked towards the racetrack, not even glancing at Julian. Julian had never been ignored like this, his face so dark it looked like it could drip water. Pretentious. He gritted out the words, his face black as he headed towards his car. On the racetrack. The starting gun fired. Julian's signature red race car shot forward, leaving Tristan's black car behind. The roar of the engine was deafening. Some people should just go back to being good students if they can't handle it. Don't try to act tough. Scarlett glanced at me, saying smugly. It just started, what's there to be so proud of? Behind from the start, and you still think you can catch up to Julian? The people around echoed. My friends were hopping mad, but couldn't retort. I quietly watched the race, not saying anything. Until at a high-speed turn, the black car used a textbook-perfect late braking technique to enter the turn, overtaking the red car and crossing the finish line first. The racetrack went silent. Scarlett was silent too. Someone in the crowd hesitantly said, "That person's cornering technique looks familiar, like the champion of the 3 major races last year." God. He said it very softly, seemingly unsure. I remained quiet, without any expression. Tristan had won the International Junior Cup at 11, and was known as a prodigy racer. Even though he stopped for a while, he had picked it back up in recent years. Last year, he even swept the 3 major races championships. But he was low-key, never showed his face, so few people had seen his real appearance. Tristan opened the car door and walked straight to me, extending his hand. "Sister, let's go home." "Okay." I smiled and took Tristan's arm. Behind me was Scarlett's bewildered attempts to comfort Julian. And Julian's face contorted with rage. In the blink of an eye, the college entrance exam results were out. I was the top scorer. I wasn't surprised, but Mrs. Aster and Tristan were very happy. They said that once the college acceptance letter arrived, they would take me on a trip abroad. I said there were still many classes I hadn't finished. Tristan frowned. "Claire, you're too tense, you need to relax." Mrs. Aster also said, "No matter what, the Aster family will always be your support, you know?" I was slightly stunned. I realized with a start. It seemed that since I was reborn, I had been pushing myself too hard. So, being rejected by Julian in this life caused me more damage than I imagined. So I was almost harshly pushing myself, wanting to gain the Aster family's approval. Afraid of being abandoned again. I looked at the 2 pairs of caring eyes in front of me. My heart warmed. I still followed their wishes. We were heading to the airport that day. We ran into the Wallace family. Their atmosphere didn't seem very good. Mr. and Mrs. Wallace had dark faces. Julian's expression was also bland. Scarlett was following Julian sheepishly, uncharacteristically silent. Scarlett cheated on the college entrance exam, and her score was cancelled. Now the Wallace family has become a laughingstock among the wealthy. Mrs. Aster withdrew her gaze and said with a smile, "Afraid of losing face, so they're rushing to send her abroad before school even starts, planning to quell the storm." I was a little surprised. Scarlett's gone crazy. What was she thinking to be so bold, given her situation? Wouldn't it be enough to just go abroad and get a diploma? Why take the risk? I shook my head, too lazy to delve deeper. What did it have to do with me? When boarding, I felt a gaze fall on me. I turned my head to look and saw Julian in the distance. Caught red-handed, he froze for a second, his eyes complex. Congratulations on being the top scorer. Thank you. I turned my head back indifferently. Julian paused again, then raised his foot, wanting to chase after me somewhat anxiously. Claire. But Scarlett grabbed him and wouldn't let go, glaring at me venomously. Brother, she doesn't even want to talk to you. Let go. Julian ignored her and shook Scarlett off. Scarlett fell to the ground in a mess, the grievances she had suppressed for a long time exploding. She didn't understand. Her brother, who had always doted on her, had been so cold to her recently. Are you regretting it? But you were the one who didn't want her first. Those words made Julian's feet freeze in place. It was my turn in line. I didn't look back. I followed the Astor family into the boarding gate. Hawaii. Here we come. The days passed by one. Entering university, I constantly absorbed new knowledge and slowly learned to transform the resources I controlled. In my sophomore year, I started building my own research team. Every member of the team was excellent, no worse than me. To support me, Mrs. Astor handed over a small subsidiary of the Astor family to me to manage entirely. The team's first project achieved great results, pushing the subsidiary to a higher level. Subsequent scientific research results even allowed the subsidiary to catch up with the parent company several times. As a rising star in business, I began to enter the field of vision of various parties. When I graduated, Tristan returned to the country and officially entered Astor Corp headquarters. Many people were waiting to see the fight between the Astor family's eldest son and the adopted daughter. They thought that Tristan's direct entry into headquarters upon his return, while I only inherited a subsidiary, would inevitably lead to dissatisfaction. However, I did not. Instead, I fully supported Tristan, with the support of me and Mrs. Astor, as well as his own outstanding abilities. Tristan quickly gained a foothold. At the same time, Astor Corp issued a statement that the subsidiary controlled under my name would be separated from the Astor Corp Group and renamed Moonlight Group. That day, the fireworks on the top floor of the Moonlight Group burned all night. Tristan stood with me, and he said, Claire, you must remember, Astor Corp will always be the backing of Moonlight Group. That's not necessarily true. I blinked and said teasingly to him, maybe Moonlight will be the backing of Astor Corp in the future, brother. Tristan said with a smile, yes, my sister is the most amazing. I turned my head, looking at the neon lights beneath my feet. I smiled. This was my deal with Mrs. Astor. Moonlight for me, and I will always support Tristan. Just a subsidiary? I thought you would want something else, like half of Astor Corp. At that time, Mrs. Astor raised her eyebrows. Maybe Mom would agree. No, I shook my head. What I want is something that belongs only to me, something that completely belongs to Claire Astor. Having lived 2 lives, I firmly believe only what is completely in my control is controllable. As an outstanding graduate, I was invited by my alma mater to participate in an equestrian archery competition, representing the school. For me, such a competition is just a rare moment of relaxation in a busy work life. Unsurprisingly, I easily won the championship. After coming down from the podium, people from the school surrounded me in circles. After finally breaking free, I was stopped again. Claire. Julian also came. Speaking of which, this was the first time we had met since he returned to the country to inherit Wallace Corp. Ignoring Scarlett's resentful expression, he walked up to me, looked at the equestrian archery uniform I was wearing, and exclaimed in amazement, You are becoming more and more excellent." His eyes contained admiration, disappointment, and regret. I suddenly felt that this look was very familiar. In my previous life, I accompanied him to attend a banquet. Scarlett, as the adopted daughter of the Astor family, performed a piano piece on stage. At that time, the way he looked at her was exactly the same. For a moment, I wanted to laugh. Reborn, Julian's preferences remained unchanged. Always likes what he can't get. Looking at the disappointed man in front of me, I politely nodded as a greeting. But my steps didn't stop. He refused to let me go, blocked me in front of him, and his expression was obscure. If I said, "We can start over, you are still my sister." I was puzzled. Is he taking himself too seriously? I coldly interrupted. I don't understand what you're talking about. If President 1 is too idle, he should worry more about Wallace Corp. Julian's face instantly darkened. As far as I know, recently, Wallace Corp has fallen into difficulties, and its stock price has plummeted. In my previous life, Wallace Corp had also suffered this calamity. Julian Value's face. At that time, I brought up the meager affection from my childhood and begged Tristan, who was already Wei Yanluo. Only then did I get help. In this life, Julian, who was reborn, had laid out his plans in advance. Unfortunately, the foundation of Wallace Corp had long been rotten. This time, without the help of the Astor family, his abilities are limited, he can't protect it. Wallace Corp is in danger. I couldn't be bothered to waste any more words with him. I turned around to leave. Claire Astor, Julian and I are about to get engaged. Can you stay away from us and stop showing up? Scarlett, who had been ignored, rushed over to stop me like a madman. Julian pushed her away. What are you doing? You can't help me with anything. Can't you cause less trouble? Julian frowned fiercely. Scarlett was thrown to the ground. She looked at Julian in disbelief, looked at the disgust and disdain in his eyes, and the last ray of hope completely shattered. I'm causing trouble? Scarlett suddenly laughed maniacally, pointing at Julian, and then at me. Julian, you regret it, don't you? What, you think she'd still want to come back to you? She's Claire Astor now, who do you think you are? This time, you were the one who chose me first. How can you be the first to get tired of me? I finally understood. So Scarlett is back too. No wonder. She's acting so crazy. Shut up. Julian glanced at me in a panic, and pulled Scarlett up. Sorry, my sister is making you laugh. What did you call me, sister? We're about to get engaged, and you call me sister? Scarlett shouted relentlessly. Julian frowned, but still patiently explained in a low voice. Scarlett didn't listen at all. They argued even more fiercely. I pretended not to understand anything. I quickly walked out of the venue. It wasn't until I got into Tristan's car that I finally breathed a sigh of relief. He smiled and asked, "What's wrong? Are you being chased by a ghost?" I nodded seriously. Yes, there is, it's very scary. Who says it isn't? I can run into them even when attending an event. So unlucky. Moonlight Group is developing rapidly. Plus, the cross-industry collaboration with Astor Corp. A strong alliance. Remarkable achievements. I have become a new favorite in the industry, a synonym for success. Now when people mention me, it's no longer that adopted daughter of the Astor family, but Claire Astor of Moonlight Group. On the other hand, Wallace Corp. is not as good as before. I heard that it has sold a lot of industries, and even transferred a lot of shares. Even though I remembered the kindness of raising me in my previous life, and restrained Astor Corp and Moonlight Group from kicking Wallace Corp while it was down like other wealthy families, it can only barely maintain its foundation. I saw Julian again. At a project bidding meeting. I was sitting on the evaluation panel. Julian and Scarlett were sitting below. He glanced at me from afar, and then embarrassedly looked away. The once top-ranked Wallace Corp. has now been reduced to one of many bidders. I looked away and stopped paying attention. During the mid-session break, I went to the bathroom. While washing my hands, Scarlett appeared quietly behind me. Let's talk. I glanced at her, wiped my hands, and walked to the lounge next door. She followed. Actually, you're back too, right? Does it matter? I asked. Her footsteps stopped, and she raised her voice. Julian abandoned you and chose me, you really don't care? My face was expressionless. He pushed you to that damned Astor family, he knew that Mrs. Astor was extremely hypocritical, and Tristan was no good either. Careful what you say. Now you're defending the Astor family. She glanced at me and sneered. Oh, I forgot, now you're the Miss of Astor Corp. You can make the Astor family treat you like a treasure, You're quite capable. Feelings are mutual, how you treat people, how people treat you. I replied calmly. Hey, yes, you know what? I can't stand your aloof look the most. Why? In your previous life, you were taken away by the Wallace family and grew up in such a happy environment, and even married Julian. What about this life? Even though you went to that ghostly place of the Astor family, you were still able to get their love. Even Julian's gaze was still stolen by you. Why? Where exactly did I lose? I looked at Scarlett's crazy appearance and took a step back cautiously. You misunderstood, Julian only likes you. Weren't they about to get engaged? She heard this, raised her head and laughed loudly. Likes me. But the white moonlight he can't forget is not me at all. It's the original owner of this necklace. It's you, Claire Astor. She tore off the key pendant on her neck, revealing a smile that was even uglier than crying. Do you remember, when you were a child, you saved a drowning boy at the entrance of the orphanage? He was dressed so richly. So when you went to find Mother Director, his family came, I pretended to be you, and accepted this necklace. He said he would come again. I waited and waited, but waited for him to take you back to the Wallace family. I just can't stand seeing you happy, so I deliberately hinted in front of Julian. And he was also moved, but unfortunately I just accidentally leaked a little information, and Mrs. Astor wanted to drive me out. That pervert Tristan even wanted to beat me to death. He did it on purpose. He remembered me leaving him in the alley. If it weren't for him, I wouldn't have run out, and nothing would have happened. Fortunately, everything can be redone. But now Julian says he doesn't want to get engaged to me anymore, even though he used to only have me in his eyes. I completely understood at this moment. Julian's sentence in his previous life, I'll find you sooner or later, meant that. Unfortunately, Scarlett is still naive. What Julian can't forget is never me, Claire Astor. He loves the Astor family's daughter who is beyond his reach. Whether that person is Claire Astor or Scarlett. In her previous life, Scarlett was the Astor family's daughter. Even if she was not favored, that halo and upbringing were real, the white moonlight hanging high in the sky. In this life, the identity is reversed. That unattainable light in his eyes has shifted to me. I looked at Julian, who didn't know when he had appeared behind her with a shocked expression. Shook my head. You're wrong. What's wrong with me? Why are you pointing fingers at me from a high place? Scarlett. Scarlett's incessant chatter was interrupted by Julian's angry roar. You lied to me? You bitch. If I hadn't chosen you, how could I have ended up in this situation? His eyes were about to burst, gasping for breath, staring at Scarlett. A storm is coming. I hurried out and closed the door of the lounge. At the end of the corridor, Tristan stood there against the light, as if he had been waiting for me for a long time, but without a trace of impatience. I hurried forward. Brother, let's go. Scarlett stole Wallace Corp's internal documents and gave them to a competitor. The Wallace family was in internal turmoil and almost collapsed. Because Julian refused to marry her, and even discuss with Wallace's parents about sending her away for a political marriage, Scarlett went completely mad. With the mentality of, if I can't have it, I'll destroy it. She took a risky gamble and sided with their rival. Less than 2 months before the auction, I heard this news. Regarding the matter of stealing documents, I wasn't surprised. Whether it was in my past life or this life, Scarlett's true nature remained the same. I heard about this from Tristan and just laughed it off. Unexpectedly, another incident occurred with the Wallace family. Julian was hospitalized. He was stabbed by Scarlett. Allegedly, Scarlett didn't run far that day and was caught by the Wallace family. The Wallace family was soft-hearted and initially wanted to talk to her, hoping to persuade her to turn over a new leaf. But Scarlett not only refused to listen but also took out a knife and stabbed Mother One, who had loved her since she was a child. It's all your fault, you old hag. If you hadn't given Julian the idea, how could he bear to let me marry someone else? Julian rushed to shield her. Even if Scarlett wanted to stop, it was too late. Now Julian is lying in the hospital, his life hanging in the balance. The Wallace family showed no leniency and sent her directly to the police station. Stealing commercial secrets. Attempted murder. Scarlett's remaining years would probably be spent in prison. A year later, the Moonlight Group officially went public overseas. The Astor family held a grand celebration banquet for me, inviting countless political and business figures to attend. I smiled appropriately, engaging in fluent conversations with the bigwigs from all sectors. I was surrounded and flattered by the crowd. My gaze unintentionally swept towards a corner. I saw Julian, who looked awkward and out of place. His suit was still meticulous, but the style was long outdated, and wear and tear could even be seen at the edges. I only glanced at him before averting my gaze. The Wallace family was able to attend the banquet because Mother One had pleaded for it. Such an evening party was filled with powerful figures, and they wanted to seize the opportunity to get back on their feet. Mrs. Astor, considering they used to be neighbors, relented. The Wallace family is now heavily in debt and has long moved out of the Villa district. During the dance time, I declined many invitations. Taking advantage of the guests dispersing, I went out to the terrace alone, wanting to secretly catch my breath. The evening breeze carried a chill, brushing against my face. I was lost in thought. Julian quietly approached at some point. Claire. He looked at me with a longing gaze. You actually came back too, didn't you? We've been together for so many years, you can't fool me. The night breeze seemed to pause for a second. His voice was low. When we were at the orphanage, you could have taken the initiative to recognize me. Why? I turned around and looked at him calmly. I just wanted to choose a path without you. And you happened to do the same, didn't you? These words were like a cold blade, accurately piercing Julian's heart. He staggered backward, his face pale as paper under the moonlight, his lips trembling, wanting to say something to refute me, but he couldn't utter a single word. Yes, he was the one who chose a different path first. What reason did he have to question me? He turned around, dejected, his back hunched, as if all his strength had been drained away. I didn't look away until his figure completely disappeared. Claire. A low, husky voice came from behind. I turned around and looked at Tristan. He walked over, subtly glancing in the direction Julian had just left. Then he handed me a cup of warm honey water. Tired? He asked softly, his tone filled with pure concern. I took the cup, looking at Tristan's exquisite profile. Then I looked into the banquet hall, at Mrs. Astor, who was elegantly conversing with someone. Not tired. I shook my head, a smile forming on my lips, and gently leaned my head on Tristan's shoulder. Brother, do you know? My life this time around is really good. I have a mother who, although strict, respects me very much. I have a brother who always stands in front of me, shielding me from the wind and rain. The warmth of this moment is within reach. Incredibly real. Those hardships and betrayals have all become the past. This life. May I be brilliant.